Back on Morning Trade Live. Let's focus on Intel. Shares are up more than 75% this year, thanks in large part to announced investments from the US government and Nvidia. Shares hit a new 52-week high on Friday, and they're up more than 100% from April's low. Let's take a look at other semiconductor chip stocks in the space today. And we are, of course, seeing shares in Broadcom up today off the back of what we've seen with OpenAI, 9% higher. Intel up over 2%. Nvidia also recouping the losses we saw on Friday, up almost 3%. And AMD, which had a very nice week last week, but did finish on the back foot on Friday, up over 2% right now. Intel is the focus of the morning trade. Joining us now for a closer look is Schwab Network host Marley Kayden. Very good morning to you, Marley. Happy Monday. So Bank of America downgrading Intel now today from, or I should say, to underperform. I'm just wondering what the analysts are saying behind this call.
Yeah, like you said, Bank of America downgrading Intel. Sam, and good morning to you too. To neutral, to underperform from neutral. They're citing strategic and competitive challenges. That's the driver behind this downgrade. The price target, though, did remain unchanged. They're sticking with a $34 price target. Analysts saying that the stock has come what they call too far, too fast, and the rapid ascent may not be justified by the underlying fundamentals in Intel. So they've had an $80 billion jump recently on some of those headlines that you mentioned, the Nvidia deal, the investment from the U.S. government, to their market cap. And they said that that more than reflects the improved balance sheet and any external foundry potential. But the competitive outlook remains challenged with what BofA says as, quote, no discernible AI portfolio or strategy, uncompetitive server CPU, and less flexibility now than before in divesting loss-making manufacturing. The stock, while you mentioned some of its performance, has been really impressive. Just in the last month, up 55%. Has been volatile, though, and some of that in part to other downgrades and commentary from other analysts. Citi also downgraded Intel to a sell with a $29 price target. They expressed skepticism about the company's partnership with Nvidia and the viability long-term of its foundry business. So this is not the first bearish call that we're seeing on Intel. It's fast moved to the upside, now raising some concerns about the fundamentals underneath.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, frankly, over at HSBC sort of had a similar train of thought last week, talking about how, this really needs a big customer for that foundry business. It really is about, securing that, and TSMC could be likely, but not many are really pinning their hopes on that at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see. But thanks so much for getting us across that, Marley. I'll catch you a little bit later. Let's trade it now with Charles Moon, stock strategist, Prosper Trading Academy. How are you approaching your example trade for Intel? Good morning to you, Charles.
Good morning. Yeah, we've seen the slew of downgrades, but the stock performance, and at least the price performance, has held up relatively well. Even in the downturn on Friday's market, while they closed on the lows, was respectfully right back to the range that they've been trading in, at least the bottom portion of the range over the last 2 weeks. So this tells me that there's still some buyer demand in the stock. I'm looking at actually an upside play here. I'm looking at the November 21st monthly contract. I'm looking at a call vertical spread. I'm going to be buying the 37 strike and selling the 42 strike for about $1.75. Now, I'm not oblivious to how Wall Street feels about this stock, so I'm only going to give it about 50% risk. I feel that if they lose a certain level, this $36, $35 price, it could actually start gaining a lot of momentum to the downside. But for me, if the markets settle and the stock starts to settle and really starts holding this range, I really believe that there's still a lot more potential, especially it could be a news-driven move. There's been rumors about TSMC and Apple both taking on some, frothy investments into the company. If actually one of those come into fruition, this stock is going to make a leap similar to what it did on that Nvidia news. So I'm looking at the upside around 50% to 100% return if they could remain above this key price range.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was mentioning just before with that HSBC analyst sort of talking about how the fab execution really remains key here. And TSMC was very much a name that many are thinking is the one that matters here. Whether that's likely or not is the big question because of the significant investments they're already making in the US. So such a fascinating story. Thank you so much for getting us across that one today, Charles. But just want to get your steer on these overall markets today. Obviously, we're seeing a nice rebound driven by a couple of things. What do you make of the price action we're seeing for this Monday?
Well, it really shows you how quick the market was ready to take profits. The one thing that I have said is that, especially on this network, I've maintained that this market is going to remain very bullish as long as that trade deal with China is going to go through. And as soon as Trump had hinted to the fact that, maybe more tariffs are going to come in, which would reignite a potential trade war, the market just absolutely collapsed. So I think that there's going to be a lot of bouncing back and forth. The White House administration and President Trump specifically kind of backtracked on his comments. He did praise President Xi, called him a great leader. He did say that he's not worried about China, that a deal is going to be done. Secretary Bessent this morning kind of reassured the markets as well. I guess it really comes down to the November 2nd deadline and what's going to happen there. If this is really going to be evolving or revolving around the rare earth material deals, or the way that China's approaching these deals, that could be a major sticking point in terms of a actual tariff deal or trade deal being worked on. But I don't really foresee that as being too much of a sticking point. I feel that both parties want a deal done. And again, as long as that, the market has the illusion that a deal is going to be done, we're going to be working much higher versus lower.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why some were out there this weekend calling it, once again, the return of the taco. But look, let's see. Obviously, we need to see whether they can continue to take the heat out of this relationship and at least put a floor under things for now. But really interesting perspective. Thank you so much, as always. Appreciate your time, Charles Moon, stock strategist, Prosper Trading Academy, joining us there.